This is the video tutorial for the Happy Days Iona Pleated Zipper Pouch. The Iona is made using the Happy Days Easy Zipper tab method. The tabs give the Iona Pleated Zipper Pouch a high quality finish. And this is how you make it. And this is what you'll need. 2 pieces of contrasting fabric for the outer, fabric for the lining, a 12-inch nylon zip. And this is how we make it. Use your templates and cut out your fabric. I've put numbers under each of the pieces of fabric for just one side so you can see the order that they have to go in. This is cut from template 1, this is cut from template 2, template 4, template 3, template 4, template 3, template 4 and template 2. Add a clip, as I've done, to the 2 outside pieces which I've cut out of template 2. This is the layout for one side of the bag. We'll start by making a centre crease in all our smallest pieces. I'm using pink polka dot. You can finger press or better still take it over to your iron and press it. That's all 3 with the centre crease, and now we're going to start joining them all together. Place the first piece of your fabric with a clip in and place it wrong sides down so you're looking at the pretty side, and take one of the pieces that you've just put the crease down the middle and place it right sides together and line up the bottom and all the sides and the top, and then add some clips. I've sewn all the way down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I've also pressed open my seams. Now take your next piece of fabric and place it right sides together on top, and once again make sure that the top, the sides and the bottom edges all line up, and add some clips. I've clipped both pieces together, and once again using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down to the bottom. I've added some clips and I'm going to take it over the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down to the bottom. I've sewn all the way down and I've pressed open the seam. I'm going to open it up and take my next piece and place it right sides together on top, line up the sides, top edges, bottom edges, and then once again add a few clips. I've sewn all the way down, and once again I've pressed open my seams, open it out, take your next piece, and once again place it right sides together, line up the sides edges and clip. I've added my clips, and now I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew all the way down. I've sewn all the way down and once again pressed open the seams. Next, take your final piece for this side with the clip on, the one that was going to be for the end. So place that exactly the same, right sides together, and then add a few clips. I've clipped, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine, and once again 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down to the bottom. Sew all the way down and once again pressed open the seam, And that's the last piece on this side. So take out your clips and we'll start pleating it. Now we're going to pleat using the crease that we made. Fold along that crease and bring this edge over to this edge so it looks like one continuous piece of fabric. Take your time with this, make sure it's all nice and straight, and then add a clip one end or a pin and then add one the other end so it looks like that. Now I'm going to do the next pleat in exactly the same way. Use the crease that I made, bring your fabric over so it all lines up nicely. The idea is that you don't see any of the pink, which we won't. Add a clip or a pin each end. Finally, we'll do the end one in exactly the same way. Bring it up and over. Ensure when you do it that this bottom edge remains straight and this top edge remains straight at all times as well. So you'll be left with a piece looking like this. Next, take it over to the sewing machine and carefully tack a line of stitches quite close to the edge so you're sewing over this piece of the fabric and this piece of the fabric just to hold the pleats into place. You won't see these stitches in the final make, and repeat for the other pleats. I've tacked all my pleats in place and I've pressed. Now I'm going to take my top piece and place it right sides together along the top edge and add some clips. I've added some clips. We've deliberately left the top piece slightly longer, and this is to allow for variations in your seam allowance. All you need to do now is carefully trim to the correct size. I've added some clips and I've also trimmed to the correct length, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way across. I've sewn and pressed open the seams, and now I'm going to top stitch along the pink fairly close to the edge. You could use your fancy stitch at this stage if you wish. I've top stitched all the way along, and that's your first side all completed. Now repeat exactly the same for the other side. That's both sides completed, and we're now going to add the zip. We'll start by making the tabs. Place your tab fabric right sides up so you're looking at the pretty side, and then fold it in half as I've done and press. Open out, and using this crease, draw a line as I've done on this one. We're now going to cut the zip to length. Draw a line just above your stopper. Yours might be plastic, but mine's metal. And then from that line measure 19 centimetres and draw another line as I've done. Now we must remember to pull the zipper pull down below this line. Next, I'm going to cut using my scissors along this line. Next, I'm going to cut across this line. Finally, I'm going to cut across this line. That's all my pieces cut away. I'm now going to turn the zip over so the pull will be underneath, touching the table, like so. With the zip facing down still, measure 2 centimetres from this edge and draw a line as I've done. Measure 2 centimetres and draw a line. Measure 2 centimetres and draw a line. Now we're going to add the tab. Take the tab that you drew the line down earlier, and we're looking at the pretty side, the right side of the fabric, and place underneath your zip. So the line that you've just drawn on your zip and the line on the tab line up. When you've lined up the lines on the tab and the zip, add a couple of clips as I've done, just to keep it steady while you sew it. And next we're going to take it over the sewing machine and we're going to carefully sew along that line. I've sewn across, so that side finished for the moment. Now I'm going to start on the other side. This is a little bit more fiddly because we've got the 2 pieces to put on. So exactly as we did before, bring your tab over, so we're looking at the pretty side of the tab still with a line on, and I'm going to line up this one first. Take your time with this, and when you're happy with it, add a clip as we did before. Now take the other side of the zip and carefully line it up on the line as we did before. Like I say, this is the fiddly one, so you must take your time. Make sure that the teeth are as close as you can get them. And then when you're happy with that, pop a clip in. When you do add your clips, make sure that they're far enough away from that line so you can sew down. I've added my clip, and as I did before, I'm going to sew across the line. I've sewn all along, making sure that the teeth are close together. Now I'm going to turn it over. So I'm looking at the back of the fabric and pull it carefully over and press. Pull this side over and press. Use your ruler and draw 2 lines so your tab is the same width as your zip, and then take your scissors and cut away as I've done this side. I've cut away the excess fabric, and that's your zipper tab all ready. Place one of your main outers of Iona right sides up. Take the zip with the tabs you've just made and place it right sides down so the tab is touching the right side. Then take one of your lining pieces and place it on top, right sides together, so pretty side to pretty side, and make sure that this edge is at the top of your zipper tape there. And when you're happy how it's all lined up, add a few clips. Take your remaining outer and place it right sides together, ensuring that the top lines up with the top of your zip, so it's pretty side to pretty side. Then carefully turn it over so you're looking at the right side of the lining piece that you've just put on. Then take your other lining piece and place it on top, right sides together. Line up the very top edge and the top edge of where you've just put the other outer. So you've sort of made a big sandwich, and add a few clips. I've added a few clips, and as I did before, I'm going to add my zipper foot and I'm going to sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way across as before. And I'm going to open it all out. And as you can see, you've got your front and your lining all neatly joined up. Now the next bit we've got to do is push your lining away, and we're going to top stitch all along here, all along the top of your zip on the front of your pouch. Make sure you're only top stitching along this side, not the lining. I've top stitched along the edge of the zip, making sure that my lining was out of the way. And then I went over to the other side, again making sure the lining was out of the way. Double check, yeah, out of the way. And top stitched along that edge as well. Next, open your zip. Very important, else we won't be able to turn it the right way. Then we've got to flip this side over to this side. So carefully from this side, flip it over. And we've got to ensure that these side seams where it changes colour fabric match up neatly. And the same for the other side. Take your time with this and add a few clips as you're going along. I've added more clips and I've paid attention to the side seams that they match up, and the pleats at the bottom all match up to the other side as best you can. They might be slightly out, but do the best you can along those three seams. I've continued to add more clips all the way around. I've added my gap sign to remind me not to sew across there. And now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and starting at my gap sign, I'm going to carefully sew along and stop all the way down to the bottom and stop, across and stop, and back up, all the way up to the top and stop, and then back to my gap sign. I've sewn all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've trimmed each of my 4 corners. I've remembered to leave a gap in the lining, and it's through this gap I'm going to turn it the right way out. I've turned it the right way out, and I've carefully pushed all the corners out. I've sewn up the gap in my lining, and all that's left now is to tuck this lining inside. And that's your Happy Days Iona pleated pouch using the Happy Days Easy Zipper Tab method all done.